The Uganda Premier League, which is weird. So I was talking to some people saying that Azam has no rights to name it. It's still the Uganda Premier League.
No, they actually bought both naming rights and...
are there documents supporting that?
They did that in their initial contract.
Did you ever see the documents?
No, I'm not like a lawyer, a FUFA lawyer, or even a club lawyer at that, so I had no chance to look at that.
Is FUFA supposed to show us those documents?
They are supposed to, I think at some stage, or at least they're accountable to the clubs themselves. So the club chairman and all should have looked at these documents. Because initially, when SuperSport was running the league, they only had rights to the league, not the naming rights. The naming rights were Belaga. Yeah. So it's usually wise to split those two because they are both big brands, and then everyone can push it slightly a little bit different. This time around, I think it was done in one huge chunk, and they got both the naming rights and the broadcasting rights. SuperSport only had the broadcasting rights and never the naming rights. So that one was still open to give out to anyone, and whoever came with a bigger bid, it was different this time. So, yeah. Okay,
what do we? Any take-homes this season for the closing season?
Quite a few, because when you look at one or two things that happened eventually from the final bend of the season and how it turned out at the end of it all, Vipers being crowned champion, you thought that there was issues of match fixing that were thrown around the circles, the football circles at some stage, especially involving clubs that were going to get relegated, and of course even the top clubs, because those points really mattered at the end of it all. There are issues with the refereeing. There were some really terrible performances from one or two referees therein, and surprisingly, the referee that was pointed out by almost everyone about having a couple of bad games went on to be crowned the best referee from the big league. So, well, what do you know? I guess everyone was looking at it slightly a little bit different. In terms of organization, I thought there was a lot of that lacking. Issues with 3 yellow cards and all. That's not something that you should be having at the end of it all, because URA coming with video evidence after that, and then they had to rescind the boardroom points that had been handed to Villa. There were a lot of crowd violence at the start of the season as well. But I think there are positives to draw from the league overall as well, because the competition really stepped up on the final bend of it all between Vipers and Villa. I thought KCC got off the boil a bit. They were into this title race until almost the very end, and then slightly lost it at the end of it all, expressed themselves blue hot and cold at certain situations. And then, of course, those ginger sides that eventually got promoted, the one ginger side, Ginger Municipal, but they did get into the playoffs, so they did do well. URA themselves had a couple of struggles as well. There's that Uganda Cup final to look forward to between URA and between KCC and Villa, and definitely a chance for one of those two clubs to feature on the African continent. And Victoria University themselves eventually coming up with the new sponsorship in Honorable Muhammad Nsereko, and I think there was a bit of a turnaround as well. I think once he got his hands out of the administrative part of it and interfering with the coach's job, I think they sort of stabilized and were able to survive relegation. So I think overall, though, some very good things that came out of the Azam Premier League. There's a lot of work still to do, I think, even in terms of broadcasting, some of the choice of games that were put on TV. I mean, you want a huge game on as well, and you want the quality to be slightly better. If you're taking up broadcasting rights from someone like SuperSport, who are really good, the kind of broadcasting they are putting out there, you want to better that when you're taking up that, and I don't think that was the case, especially this time around. But lots of room for improvement. These are things they will continue to hear, I think, before the new season kicks off. These are things they should be working on, look at doing a bit more previews, training a bit more of their staff as well. So it's something that can surely be worked on.
All right.
Well, let's move on now. Thank you for that analysis in football. But the Airtel National Basketball Challenge League, sorry. Because of Airtel National Challenge, you remember that a few years back? Anyway, did Power wallop sharing as expected.
It was a beating. It was a beat down, actually, not a one. Eventually, the final score, 31-71, was the final score in that one, sharing 31 Power with 71. Ekong, Joseph Ekong top scoring with 15 points in that one. Sudi Elanga adding an 11 there. Otoa from sharing with the highest points, 8 points for him in there. So it was a bit of a walloping. I never thought it was going to be a contest. Power under Mugabe have had some better organization, you want to imagine. They've got a couple of players in there. They've got in Sudi Ulanga. I think Joseph Ekong is playing better in a regular season. I think overall, as a club, they're a bit more organized. Then in the women's, Amazon also getting their own beating against Magic Stormers, 67-31, the eventual score in that of the bulk of games that were played yesterday in the Airtel National Basketball League.
All right, let's talk some international basketball. In NBA, it was game one yesterday in the West, but it's game one today in the East. Yeah. Who's up?
Cleveland, King LeBron. Although he wasn't the magician on that day, little known gentleman, J.R. Smith happened, and happened big. Really led the Cleveland all throughout in this one, and eventually Cleveland taking game one, 97-89 against the Atlanta Hawks, who looked a bit out of sorts. You'd like to imagine coming up against Cleveland, especially since some of their best starters were not even up to the game. I think Kyrie Irving really struggled in that game overall, so they would want to bounce back before the series goes back to Cleveland, because game 2 is in Atlanta as well, before game 3 and 4 goes back to Cleveland. So hopefully there's a game 4 at that, and it's not a sweep in this one. But yeah, so first blood drawn by Cleveland, and they're looking very good to go on and come out as Eastern Conference finalists. So it's 97-89 the final score in that particular game.
All right.
Let's talk about European football now. Brian should be happy to know. Juventus, is a treble a reality? Not too many people win these trebles. So I'm assuming they lost to Lazio last night.
Well, Arsenal don't win trebles. But they did not lose to Lazio. So the treble is looking like a reality. This is European football. Anything can happen. It's one shot at it, 90 minutes. So even extra time if you need that. It's
not anything. It's clear Arsenal are going to beat Juventus will beat Real Madrid. It's clear. Barcelona. It's clear. It's clear. The underdogs are taking it.
I mean, it would be a nice story. It would be a nice story, especially for Allegri, if he did manage to do that in his first season. But it's still going to be tough against the Barcelona side. That's something we'll talk about eventually. But I think the double works for them, winning their 10th La Decima. In this case, their 10th Coppa Italia title against Lazio. Both captains scoring really early on and setting the tone. Giorgio Cellini, the one that was involved in the bite gate. And then, of course, Radu from Lazio also getting onto the score sheet earlier on. They needed an extra time goal to get the trophy eventually. Alessandro Matri scoring that goal for them. So celebrations all around, and they have a double to their name. They didn't look like they worked too hard for the domestic title because they looked like the better side from the onset, even when they crumbled a bit, and they had all the time to concentrate on the European football. So on the European football in terms of Champions League, I know they have another final to look forward to against Barcelona. They've bagged this, a double. Massimo Allegri can't be complaining too much.
Barcelona, please. All right, so yesterday Arsenal played Sunderland.
Yes. They didn't win, but they finished third. I think they secured that third position now. So, but the bigger news coming out of that is the fact that Sunderland managed to hold off Arsenal, got the point that they needed, and they're not getting relegated. So
good for them.
Good for them. And on the overall, I think so. They leave Dick Advocate in a pretty good position now, because if you're not facing relegation and you've survived relegation, that's a good one. So Hull and Newcastle, the other candidates to
Newcastle, as in that is like fall from grace.
No, but Newcastle does this dance all the time.
Yeah, sometimes they're up in the top 6 even.
Yes.
And then
although it hasn't happened in a while, but they always go down and manage to come up.
Yeah.
They're one of those clubs, and they have quite a huge fan base. So the Magpies have managed to do that. They always go down and manage to come right back up. So for them, it would be tough. But I think Hull is the one that finds themselves in a tricky position. Steve Bruce plays Manchester United. It will be a bit of an OB thing. Maybe Manchester United might help them out. They need a win. But that win might not be enough if Newcastle go on and also win their game against West Ham, if I'm not mistaken. So if Newcastle draw, anything like a draw for Newcastle, and Hull actually win against Manchester United, Newcastle go back down because in terms of goal difference, Hull have a better goal difference than them. So Newcastle need to win in order to stay up.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, tomorrow we'll be talking some Olympic 2016 Olympic qualifiers, and as the team will be flying, our expectations from the team, and also some transfer news. But catch the rest of the analysis late at 1:30 p.m. with Nomansi, Alan, and Isma there on Omumuri. This morning you're celebrating a birthday. You celebrate it with Mario Mandzukic, who is a Croatian footballer. Plays with Atletico Madrid. Today he turns 29, and he has won the Bundesliga, the DFB Pokal, and the Champions League. That feels so good. Such a young age, you earn all this. I mean, the only thing he's left with is a World Cup, which is impossible, but this guy was named the Croatian Footballer of the Year in 2012 and 2013. Some of the stuff he does on the pitch is absolute magic, and you're going to take a look at that. Friday Nakazwe is coming up with Marcy Zemutia. We'll catch you tomorrow for the extreme version of Friday. Don't miss a surprise guest on Everyday Life. I can't wait for this guy. He's absolutely talented. You'll catch him tomorrow. For the rest of you, someone said I should send them greetings. I forget the name, but she watches the show. Auntie Florence. Oh. She watches the show, yeah, and she wants a decoder, so we'll probably hook her up tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye-bye.